All right, we're back. So let's jump into shot two. So a similar layout here. You can see the music file down here. I'm using Blender 5.0 beta. One other reason I'm using the beta version is that they fixed how this works. So I think in versions before 5.0, you couldn't like move things like this up and down in the sequence editor. It would always just go to channel one. And honestly, I was getting bugs, weird things where it would like disappear. That while working on a project can be really, really frustrating. And it's not like I had time to like bug report it or do anything like that. I was just like, all right, let me download the latest version and hopefully it's fixed. Luckily it was. It's way more manageable now than it was in 4.5. So down here I have the music marked out where certain events happen. So this was a pretty long shot. It's a little bit over a minute. This is the main shot right here, this kind of orbit. And the idea for that shot was just to get an alternate angle, show a little bit more of the environment, do some of that like, parallax that I love to do with my scenes. And that camera does that. So I first set the angle where I wanted to start and where I wanted to end. So I just kind of like started the camera here, and with this first shot, I liked having the car here. I put the guy on the car. In shot one, this building has like a bunch of stuff, like this thing is up here like that. But in shot two, I wanted the camera to start from this side, but if I would have had that stuff in there, it would have been in the way and it would have kind of made the shot not look so good. And the focus is on this character here on the pillar, so I always want your line of view for him to be clear, unless there's like blocking for like a very short amount of time. So it starts here, and this is also in the track where like the drums come in. I had Dennis help me animate this guy. I basically asked Dennis like, hey, give me a couple versions where the drum machine guy is like pressing the buttons, turning the knobs, all kinds of things like that. And then so I just like took the part of him doing this, boop, just presses a button right there. You can see it in the animation in the final one, but yeah, he just like looks down, hits that button, and then really that's kind of how these drum machines work. They're really simple. You're not like really doing much. You just kind of set up loops and stuff. So this one was just good enough to like initiate the drum loop in a sense. And then I think this motion here, this little bit of extra motion, I just kind of like, you can see the hand is not really changing. It's more just the wrist, a little bit of movement, and getting it to look like he's like turning a knob or something. So very, very minimal like articulation. So what Dennis gets me is like 90% of the work, and then I just kind of tweak a little bit to give it a little extra like movement or just some more animation there. Yeah, he ends up doing it again because I think I have like, so he does it once, and then he leans down, does the same exact motion again. It really was kind of an accident to have him doing it the second time, but I think it just worked out perfectly with the timing and everything. When I saw it in the final render, I was like, oh no, I got to re-render that, but it actually kind of worked out, so I was really happy with that. But let me talk about this orbit here. So the way I animate the camera is where the main character is. There's this big empty that's right on the main character's head. So when I place the 3D tracker, like where I want the camera to be focusing, and then at that 3D cursor point, I spawn an empty. In this case, it's just like this big, very noticeable one. I just need something that's noticeable from all the other noise that's going on in the scene. And then I just parent the camera to that empty from this position. And then what I do is if I rotate this, you can see that it's just this creating this really cool like diorama parallax effect. So all I do in this case is I pick where I would like the starting angle and then the finishing angle. And I just kind of go like, all right, that's a cool compositional shot, going off of what I talked about in the first video where I try to frame my shots so that you're really only looking at one thing. So in this ending shot, it stops like this, where this big structure here is framing the middle character. And then the camera also does a zoom out very slowly from one to the end. And then it is also zooming out. And the reason I have it zooming out is purely just to give it to make it a little bit more interesting, because just a single orbit like this felt a little bit too dry. So I like the idea of also slowly zooming out, and zooming out does another thing, which is it lets you see more of the environment. So if you are watching this over and over again, you get a little bit of reward of watching it the second time because there's more things to look at, more things to catch. So when I did this one, I brought in even more things on the ground than there was of the first shot. So the first shot, you only see the ground from one angle, but this one, since you see a lot more of the environment from different angles, I had to kind of make sure the angle that the camera is traveling, those angles are covered. If the camera is not moving any further than this point, then I don't really need more things, but I really wanted to focus on the entire time that you're seeing him. You're also seeing the other bandmates either playing their instruments, and then here the keyboard player comes into frame. So their animation is also pretty basic, and especially because it's from behind, you don't need to see their fingers or anything like that. It's more just about capturing the motion. I want it to be immersive, but I don't want it to be distracting. I don't really want the audience to be looking at the keyboard player too long. I want them to be still always looking at this main character here. But this guy's arms move at least to the sound of the keyboard, so it feels good enough. Let me jump into the render view and talk about the lighting a little bit. I think, yeah, I don't have shadows on. That's a very interesting thing. So with the way that I work and the way that I light and overlight everything, like I'm very deliberate and specific with where I want my lighting to be. So it's almost like a video game where I'm placing a light everywhere that I have an actual light, or I want like there to be color there. So I'm using a lot of lights here. You can see that there's a lot of lighting around the main character, and then just kind of like spotlights everywhere. And I really like the ability to say I want blue light here, and then I want red light. And really those are the two main lights that I have. So in the very beginning here, kind of following that rule that I established in the first shot with things in the foreground over here by the main character are red and everything behind him is blue. This was a fun way for me to dress up the shots when you see them. So there's a light here. It doesn't really make sense why there would be a light here, but I feel like when you're doing it's very forgivable where you put the lights as long as you can't see the actual thing that's emitting the light. So you can kind of hand wave everything away as like, oh, that's just ambient, whatever, environment lighting. But if there was like an actual lamp here that you could see and it was casting the light, then I would have to really stick to the visible light in the shot and the rules of that light. But because this is kind of like a rubble scene, like it's kind of chaotic, I can play around with like maybe having a really strong light down here, having a light up here. It's a little bit more forgiving with like how I set everything up. And I really liked having this light down here because look at this rim light on this item. Like on this object right here, that rim light to me looks like a white outline. Like it looks like something I would do, like I would paint in Photoshop or something. Like I really love how that turned out. Yeah, that negative light is eating a lot of that lighting and graphic look, which I really, really like. And then the background, I have a light behind this building here, and it's back here, and it's just to kind of create some interesting shadows, some interesting silhouettes. Even like this is kind of a cool shot because you see rubble here, you see a lot of light, and that light and volume is naturally creating this like really hard edge of this other rubble. So you can see already like really cool layering and kind of like storytelling here. Yeah, I put a lot more things on the ground. Like I took all the scaffolding like off some of the buildings, like all these rails. This building is this one turned on its side. It creates a bit of like a wall here of stuff. And then also this creates a lot more variation on the ground. Like you can see I have this one texture or this one asset of the ground like 9 or something times just duplicated all the way around. And I'm using Alt D so that they're instanced, they're not like full duplicates. And then I have all these instances of the same 2 pillars essentially. A lot of this rubble is all from one pack, from one big, medium, small pack. And I'm not using even every asset that comes with it. This tree root and then some of these like other random things are from Ian Hubert, I think. And you don't always see all of that in the final, but it's just there to kind of fill out and break up some of the repetition of the ground. Once I set the camera up, it was just like letting it play and then making sure the lighting looked cool. Like, so sometimes, for example, I would stop here and I'd have this pillar here, and maybe I would move it forward. So I'm just pressing G and then Shift Z, and that kind of lets me move it forward and back on like a flat plane. So it's not moving up and down. And so you can see that there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of these like random area lights floating around for their own reasons. But as I move this in and out of lighting, it like frames the shot in a new and interesting way. So this way, if the rock is here, it creates this really hard shadow, a hard triangle, and I like it because compositionally it does the thing where it creates like a point, this point right here, and it's pointing up towards our main character. Same thing here. This edge is kind of coming down. There's a lot of these like lines that are either blocking your eye from going to that corner, kind of like, bouncing off. This hard edge right here is like pointing this way. These I love. These were happy accidents, but I made sure to put lights here that emphasize this edge. So like this edge kind of catches your eye, and it goes from dark to light this way. And everything in the shot, even if it's in motion, like even if it's just like stages in this sequence, everything I want to be as often as possible putting your focus in the center. So that's a little bit harder with animation, but I think it's possible if you really plan out your camera shots. You can use shadows to make people not look in a certain area, because the corners is where the eye, the attention can escape. So you really want to try to be mindful with like either putting nothing there, nothing of interest, so their eye doesn't wander there, or putting something that brings the eye back into the center of the frame. So this is not an interesting shape, but it has a highlight here. So this highlight kind of stops, I think that stops you from looking beyond, because like, oh, there's nothing here. And it just like frames the shot. This highlight here frames. This is all kind of like just blocking in your view. These rails, they all point in this direction. I'm drawing all these lines and it makes it look like, oh, I planned every single highlight and shadow out. I didn't, but what I'm saying is this is what I look for when I do my lighting. So I'll have this scene set up, and then I move all the area lights in ways that complement the composition and give me the exact look that I want. So you can make focus with color, with edges, with contrast. Those are all the things I use in my work. So as this keeps going, again, if we pause here, this is a cool shot. Like the same thing is happening. This thing is pointing towards him. It's even more contrast and value separation from the background. Like if we were to make this black and white, the background doesn't have a lot of values. It has that mist, all of these kind of things are reinforcing looking at him. He's like the darkest and the brightest thing at the same time. This character doesn't have any more lighting on him. It just has the red. I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself, but I hope you get the idea. So at the end, we just end here and it just slowly zooms out because I needed some time to decide whether I wanted to fade or whether I wanted it to end here. There's kind of like this cutout here of the background so that he's right in the middle. You can't really miss him. So I have this environment that's like cut out in this very specific way. And I didn't cut that environment out. I placed all these items and then I just moved. Once I landed the camera here, I'm like, I like this. We'll end here because it puts all the focus on this character. But yeah, I think it really helped with the client saying like, hey, we don't need super tight close-ups on him. That made it a lot easier for me. That let me just focus on the environment, focus on the composition, focus on the mood and the atmosphere and the vibes and everything like that. So I want to touch a little bit on some of the render settings. So you can see most notably, I don't have shadows turned on. And if I turn the shadows on, it's very dark because there's a lot of lights. So this was a weird scene. In shot one, a lot of the shadows helped because it created these like really cool shapes. But in this one, it was just too dark. Like it just was too dark. So sometimes not having the shadows makes it better, especially with Eevee and NPR, stuff like that. Another thing is I don't have ray tracing on. I think for me, let's see if we turn that ray tracing on, if it makes a difference. Yeah, I'm not noticing any difference with ray tracing on or off. I think one of the other reasons I turned the shadows off is because the shadow buffer was full. Yeah, but it doesn't, visually I still like it without the shadows. Here's some of the volume settings, resolutions if you were interested. Shadow pool set to 1 gig. Usually it's 512, but I learned that with Eevee, setting it to 1 gig helps. I also recently updated my computer to a 5070. Yeah, 5070 Ti, I think. So the GPU is 16 gigs of VRAM instead of the 12 that I had before. And rendering this was like a breeze. I think maybe because not having shadows on, not having ray tracing on, and not having a very high res volume. It's like 1.4. So it all rendered pretty quickly.